Mr. Don Rogers. Don.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to give a report on an organization that I'm helping to form and be a small part of. It's called the American Leadership Network. Jack McManus asked me to give a quick report on this organization and what we're doing. What we found is that we have a lot of organizations all across the country. Good, well-meaning people. They're upset, frustrated, determined. They want to do something. But they all kind of go off in their own direction. They have their own pet project. There's a little ego involved. They have their own structure and so forth. We thought, well, maybe we can figure out a way to get all of these groups marching down the same road in the same direction. Because if there's something like 20,000 of these groups, say an average membership of 100, that's 2 million people. And if we get that many people working on the same issue, we can make a difference. We're going to structure the thing in a circle. In other words, there's no president or there's no structure at all. It's a circle. If you want to help us, you are an affiliate and you come in and you're just a member of the circle. In fact, the American Leadership Network is just another affiliate. Nobody's going to make any money out of this. That's not the object. We just want to get, I told somebody earlier, with these groups, it's kind of like trying to herd a bunch of cats through a fish market. They're all going in different directions. There'll be no membership fees, dues, or anything like that. Are you familiar with a group called Numbers USA? You folks all right? Numbers USA? And we're going to try to pattern our organization somewhat to what they do. I don't know if you remember the amnesty bill that was moving through Congress and headed for President Bush's desk. The Numbers group, they have a setup where you can, if you're on their list and you want to send a fax to your congressman or your senator, all you got to do is move over to fax and click your mouse. And immediately it goes in. There's no charge, no cost. They generated something like 400,000 faxes, and they literally stopped the amnesty bill dead in its tracks. You remember that? It didn't get to the president's desk, and he'd already said he would sign it if it did. We're going to structure ours somewhat similar to this. We're going to pick out issues that we can get the folks, the affiliates, to agree to. We had a meeting in Jackson a couple of months ago, and in fact, Jesse was there, one of your council members. And we had about 10 different groups represented, and they all came on board and say, yeah, we like this idea, we want to get behind you, and we want to work on this deal. Hopefully, as I said, nobody's going to make any money, no egos involved. We just want to get everybody on the same page and work in the same direction. A couple of months ago, I had the honor of, I was at a luncheon, JBS luncheon in Sacramento, and Jack McManus was sitting beside me. And I talked a little bit to him about this and said, I don't know what we ought to do. What's the best way to approach being effective? What issues should we seize on? And Jack said, Don, do you remember Article 1, Section 7 of the U.S. Constitution? And I vaguely remembered. I said, no, tell me about it. He said, it says that all spending bills must originate in the House of Representatives. So I thought about that, and I thought, well, hey, that sounds like something that maybe is doable. I had Jack, he got some more information for me, and we found out that there are some 435 members of the House of Representatives. A majority is 318.
218.
Huh?
218.
218. That means that if we can get, and incidentally, 3 years ago, Congressman Ron Paul had an amendment, and he got 145 people to support his amendment, which was going to limit the monetary contribution to the United Nations. At 145. So if we got 73 more, we would have a majority in the House of Representatives. 73 more, and then if we could point all these people, hopefully they'll come on board with us, firing faxes into the House of Representatives, we can maybe stop some of these spending bills that are destroying our country. They won't have money to fix potholes on the super slab.
Yeah.
They won't have money to provide all these social programs that's a magnet for all of these immigrants, illegal immigrants coming into this country. Cut off the medical care, the welfare, all kinds of goodies that are bringing them all in. So that's the report, Jack. And thank you for your idea.
Okay.
And incidentally, at our meeting, and Jesse was there, we got a unanimous vote of our group to take on as our first project trying to stop the spending bills in the House of Representatives in the U.S. Congress.
Very good.
That's our number one.
Very good.
Now, Jack also asked me to give a report on how I was instrumental in helping get rid of the inheritance tax in California. And I'll be very brief on that, but when I was campaigning, when I ran, I let some business people talk me into run for office in Bakersfield. I didn't want to run. I told them, hey, no, find somebody else. I'm busy with my business here. I've got a nice life. Just built a new house. My 3 kids were in high school. I said, no, find somebody else. Oh, they kept coming back, Don. We know your philosophy. You're outspoken. We want you to run for the city council. I said, no, find somebody else. They came back about 5 times, and finally I said, okay, all right, I'll run. So I thought if I'm going to run, I might as well win. So I did. I beat a 6-year incumbent because he'd voted to put a utility tax on the people in Bakersfield, and they didn't need the money. It was just a way to get more revenue out of the people. I beat him over the head with that issue, and I beat him at the polls. And I made a promise that if you elect me, I'm going to get rid of this utility tax. The first city council meeting after I was elected, I'd already done some lobbying with the other members of the council, and I made a motion to abolish the city utility tax in the city of Bakersfield, and it passed unanimous, so we got rid of the utility tax on the first meeting. 6 years later, a seat became vacant in the California State Assembly. And the same group of business people came to me and said, Don, you've done a good job on the city council. You got to run for the state assembly. I said, no, I don't want to, I'm fine here in Bakersfield. I don't want to go to Sacramento. And they kept pounding on me again and again. And finally I said, okay, I will. So I thought again, if I'm going to run, I might as well win. So I did, and I was elected 4 times to the city of the assembly. And then the senator from that district retired, and here they came back and said, Don, you got to run for the state senate. And I said, no, I was ready to go back and run my business in Bakersfield, but they pounded on me, so I ran and was elected to the state senate. But anyway, when I was running for the assembly, campaigning, I went around and I found out every group I spoke to, somebody would come up to me out of the audience and say, Don, if you get elected, if you get to Sacramento, for heaven's sakes, get rid of this terrible tax, the inheritance and gift tax of California. They said, just because somebody dies in the family, and they've already paid taxes once on everything that's been accumulated, on their money, their property, whatever they've accumulated, equipment, whatever, it's already been fully taxed. Then just because somebody dies, here comes the taxpayer, or the tax collector knocking on the door for a huge tax, sometimes even before the funeral's over. So they said, Don, if you get up there, please do what you can to get rid of this terrible tax. So I said, okay, it sounds like something should be done, I'll do it. So the first bill I introduced when I got to Sacramento in 1979 was a bill to abolish the inheritance and gift tax in California. It was heard in front of the committee, the Revenue and Taxation Committee, made up of a majority of liberal Democrats who wanted more revenue, not less, and they immediately killed the bill. The next year I introduced it again with a slight change. The committee killed it again. And I got to think, you know, I may be a little slow, but I'm not dumb. And I said, this is not getting it done, folks. So my administrative assistant and I were having lunch, and we said, well, what are we going to do? Well, California has an initiative process. If you get enough signatures on petitions, you can put an issue on the ballot in front of the people. And not all states have this. California, fortunately, has that. So we were sitting there, and we thought, well, what do we do? So I said, well, why don't we try an initiative? So he and I said, okay, by golly, let's do it. And we had no money. I went on the tour and raised about $200,000. And this guy, my assistant, he mortgaged his home for $65,000, a second mortgage on his home for $65,000. So we started out with that, and we did some direct mail, and we kept turning it over. Finally, I had $200,000, and incidentally, my assistant was repaid for his $65,000. We paid him back. But then I started again organizing committees in all the 58 counties in California, and we then wrote. I started writing this initiative, and I had help from attorneys, estate planners, bankers. I brought them all in. I said, let's get something that's going to work. So I wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it about 20 times until I had the wording that I thought would stand challenge. In June of 1982, we got it, we qualified it. We had 5 months, 150 days to collect 473 valid registered voter signatures.
73,000?
473.
Okay.
473,000 registered voter signatures. That's what it took to qualify it for the ballot. We had 5 months. In 4 months, we collected 1 million signatures. Let me tell you, folks, and they were all volunteers. We did not buy one signature on any petition, not one. We had these beautiful little gray-haired women putting up their card tables in front of the food stores, and we had a big sign on it, you know, sign up here to get rid of the death tax. We had people 20 deep standing in line to get to that table to sign those petitions. Now you go by and they have to kind of grab you to get you to sign something. People couldn't wait to get rid of that tax. So we qualified it. In June of 1982, the people voted it out 2-1. 65% voted to get rid of this tax. Well, just as I figured, immediately the big spending liberals challenged it in court. But because we'd been very careful in how we wrote it, the courts ruled in our favor. This was in 1982. In 1986, 4 years later, after the people had voted it out 2-1, I was in the Senate then, the Senate Revenue and Taxation Committee. They had a brainstorming session where they were trying to figure out how do we get more revenue. They had a bloated budget, all kinds of spending, and they were trying to figure out how do we get enough money to balance our budget. And I heard on this brainstorming session by this committee that they were looking at all kinds of new taxes or increases, and they put the inheritance and gift tax on the table. They wanted to reimpose it on the people, even though they'd voted it out 2-1 4 years before. I heard about it. By the way, you know, there are no secrets under the dome in Sacramento. You always hear what's going on. So I called the committee consultant, a guy named Martin Helmke. And I said, Martin, I understand that your committee is looking at reimposing the inheritance and gift tax. He said, Senator, that's right. They're looking at a lot of things. That's one of the things that they're thinking about reimposing. I said, Martin, let me suggest something to you. You get the it was now statute law because the people had passed it. You get it out and you read it because I wrote it. And I put a clause in there that says the only way this tax can ever be reimposed is by a majority vote of the people in a general election. And there was about a 10-second delay on the phone. He said, Senator, I recall, you're right. I remember now. You're right. The next day I heard they'd taken that off the table. Yay. There'll never be an inheritance tax again in California, folks, I guarantee you. Right. Now, I got one thing I got to do here. Where's Yolanda?
I'm right here.
Yolanda's right here. Yolanda, here is a pitcher of water that was filled with ice. And you can see the ice in it. Now, we marked the fluid level with all of this water and ice right here. Bill Jasper, where? Bill, you're my witness. Did we mark it in the right place?
We did.
Okay. Now, Yolanda's going to put this in a microwave for about 30, 40 seconds and melt all this ice and then bring it back in. It'll just be a minute. She'll be right back.
You need to try this.
Yeah. But you know, I've got, and let's tell you, I'm a little bit humbled speaking to the council here. I'm honored that you gave me a few minutes. But I got to get something off my chest because we're looking at a lot of people that can influence a lot of people across this country. I'm a geologist. Maybe I know a little bit more about the way the world works, the globe works, than the average person. A little bit more, and I'm talking about this global warming. I'm not saying that the globe's not warming up. It's warmed up about 1 degree. I'm not questioning that. My question is, the people on the earth have absolutely nothing to do with the warming of the globe.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. They're talking about carbon dioxide, you know, is going to cause this problem. We got to cut down on the carbon dioxide, you know, it's creating all this greenhouse gas and everything. Let me ask you this. Carbon dioxide is 1.5 times heavier than air. Now, if you produce carbon dioxide, which way is it going to go? It's going to go down, not up. And if they've got this so-called greenhouse roof up here that's trapping all of this heat and greenhouse gas, but let me ask you this. Is this thing unidirectional? It won't allow heat to go up, but it allows heat from the sun to come down. Now, how can that be? I don't understand that, folks. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. You know, the planet Mars, it varies from 65 million to 35 million to 65 million miles away from the Earth. It has an elliptical orbit. When it's closest to the Earth, it's only 35 million miles away, which is pretty far. About a year ago, when it was real close, you could actually see it at night. I remember I used to see it in the western sky. You could see the planet Mars. They trained the telescopes on it, and lo and behold, the polar caps at Mars, the ice caps, are receding. On Mars, they're receding. Now, folks, I don't believe the exhaust from my vehicle is causing those things to recede. It's a hoax. It's a bunch of baloney. You know this guy, Mr. Hansen, down in Florida, who says if we don't do something and the polar caps all melt, that the ocean is going to raise 20 feet, the south half of Florida is going to be underwater. Everybody that has a home along the ocean, the beaches, your house is going to be underwater. All right, that's why I had Yolanda do what she's doing. Now, she'll be back here in a minute, and I want to show you after all this ice is melted, where the water level is. You know where it's going to be? Exactly the same place. Exactly the same place. She'll be here in a minute and I'll verify it. Now, folks, they're trying to panic everybody into believing that this is going to, that we better do something before this happens, this calamity. I contend that the reason the polar ice caps on Mars are receding and the reason we have a 1 degree increase in temperature on our globe is due to the activity of the sunspots. There's a bunch of activity, and it fluctuates. 30 years ago, the same group of people was talking about we were going into an ice age, you know, we're going to freeze to death. Well, that didn't work, so now we're all going to be drowned by the raising of the ocean, the level of the ocean. It's baloney. They're talking about the polar bears, you know, they're all going to be, the polar bears on the south half, because of the warmer weather, are doing much better than the ones in the north. They got more polar bears now in the south than they've ever had before. It's a bunch of baloney, folks, and please don't be taken in. Anyway, I know I've run over my time. I got so much I'd like. That's okay, Jim. We've been having fun, right? But if you would, when Yolanda comes back in, and if you give her just a minute, it will show you where that flood level is. But anyway, folks, thank you very much. It's been fun.